Hi, and welcome to CES. In particular, welcome to CES Talk. Yes, we're now here at week 8 of lockdown, but we have our 9th chess talk for you, because last week we had double the pleasure with 2 talks on music. This week, I'm really excited because we have a new speaker for you. You can see his picture on screen at the moment. It's our Harrogate principal, it's Duncan. And one of the reasons I'm really happy to welcome Duncan to Chess Talk is, like me, he's from Scotland. In fact, he's very like me because he's from Glasgow. So it's good to hear a traditional accent on Chess Talk. We're going to be starting in just a couple of minutes' time. Before I do that, let me remind you, you can watch us live on our YouTube page at CES Schools. You can also follow us live on Instagram, again by searching for CES Schools. And as always, a big shout out to Cal, who's streaming this live through Instagram at this moment. You can find out more information about all of the programs at CES at our website, www.ces-schools.com, and you'll find lots of information about everything we're doing online. If you go onto our YouTube page, you can find all of our previous webinars. So we explore a wide range of subjects, ranging from biscuits to music to pub culture. So if there's a topic you're interested in, odds are we've covered it one of the weeks. We've also got quite an extensive social program that's running all this week at CES. Being on Wednesday, it's our webinar day. Monday was movies, where we're encouraging you to watch Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Yesterday we had trivia. Tomorrow we've got a pub quiz, or a quiz night, which is hosted by Tom from our Worthing School, and you can interact with that on Zoom or on Instagram. And then this Friday, we've also got a photo competition that we're running all week. And the best photo gets blown up, put on canvas, and displayed in one of our CES schools. So that's certainly a prize worth competing for. But you've heard enough from me. You hear enough from me all the time. It's time to put you across to our newest speaker, and that's Duncan from Harrogate. So Duncan, hello.
Hi, Johnny. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. As Johnny said, I'm from Glasgow originally, but now I'm in Harrogate, sunny Harrogate, which is in the north of England, in North Yorkshire. If you've never been, it's a kind of medium-sized town just between York and Leeds, about half an hour from each city, which is where I live now. So welcome to, as Johnny said, number 9 of the CES Talk series. And number 1 for me. I thought it would be fun today to choose a topic that was travel related. Since this is a time that unfortunately none of us can travel so much, I thought it would be nice to remember why we love traveling and look forward to doing it again in the future. So I've chosen a topic which I've named Weird Britain, because one of the great things I think about travel is going to other countries, experiencing other cultures, and discovering how different things are in different places and how you might find them a bit weird. So we're going to look at habits and customs that visitors to Britain have said they find quite strange. So if you've been here before, you might recognize some of these yourselves. Now, it would be great because I think we've got people listening from all different countries, from all around the world. So if we could make this interactive, it'd be fantastic. If you want to make a comment, if you agree with me about something being weird, then let me know. Or if you think, actually, that's the same as my country, that's not weird at all. Or you've got your own examples of things that when you traveled here, you thought were a bit strange, then it would be really nice if you let me know. And as I go through the presentation, I'll try and read some of them out. I'll keep reminding you to do that as we go. But just to give you an example, so it's clear what we're talking about, let me turn it around at the beginning and give you an example of something I found strange as a British person when traveling abroad. Anybody who's in Japan might recognize this bowl from Yoshinoya. Yoshinoya is a fast food chain, very popular in Japan, and I think it's in other countries as well. We don't have any in the UK. It's delicious. So my story is about when I went to Japan many years ago. I went there to work. I'd never been there before. I'd learned a little bit of Japanese from a book, but I wasn't any good. And I got all the way to Japan. I got picked up by somebody who worked for the company I was going to work for. And they took me to my apartment, and that was great. And then they left. And they said, see you at work on Monday. And suddenly I found myself on my own, and I was hungry. So I went outside, I walked around. I didn't know what anything was. I couldn't read any of the signs, but I saw a brightly lit restaurant called Yoshinoya, which I'd never seen before in my life. And I thought, well, that has food. So in I went, and I can't remember now if they had pictures on the menu or if I just pointed at somebody else, but I got food. I got their famous beef bowl, rice with beef and onion on top. And what do you think was strange for me? What hadn't I thought about? Chopsticks. Never in my life had I held or used a pair of chopsticks. And I thought, how am I going to eat this food with chopsticks, let alone eat rice? How do you pick rice up with chopsticks? So I was starving. I tried my best. I was putting them in my hand. I was eating extremely slowly. And basically the end of my story is a nice guy. He must have been 70 years old, a local guy looking at me, seeing that I had no idea how to eat this food, came over. He didn't speak any English. I couldn't really speak any Japanese. He just took my hand, he put the chopsticks in, and he moved them, and he showed me how to do it. And yeah, I managed to eat my meal. So that was a custom that to a Japanese person or an Asian person would be so normal. But to me, as a British person, I found so strange. I'll give you one more example. Move country. Anyone looking at this picture from China would recognize that as a very normal meal. Well, when I went to China, I had never seen a meal like that before, because I'm used to one plate, a knife and fork, and I eat my food and I don't touch anybody else's food. But in China, the food is shared. All of the food is on a lazy Susan, which is a big kind of wheel that turns around in the middle of the table. And I can't remember if it was a work situation or if a family had invited me for a meal. But the first time in China, I went for this kind of meal. They were very kind, and I was the guest. And they said, Duncan, you go ahead, you start. And I thought, and I feel so stupid saying it, I thought you just chose the plate that you liked, not that you took a piece from each plate. And I like meat, so I took, in this picture, I would take that chicken right at the front. I took the whole plate, put it in front of me, and started eating it. And everyone else was so polite. They didn't say anything. They just continued with their meal. And about halfway through, I realized I was sitting here with just eating chicken, and everybody else was eating pieces of everything else. So this is how you learn. This is the embarrassment you go through sometimes when you travel. So there's two examples of how I, as a British person, found some customs quite weird. Now I want to turn it around and talk about what people think about Britain that we might find perfectly normal. Before we go too far, just to make sure everybody's comfortable and we understand what we're talking about so that you can make some comments, let's do a vocabulary check. So, habit, a regular thing that a person or people do, especially that is difficult to give up. So, you could have a bad habit, okay, smoking, picking your nose, something like that. You could have a good habit, walking up the stairs instead of using the lift or the escalator for your health. These are all habits, typical things that people do. And a custom, a traditional and widely accepted way of doing something that's specific to a particular society or place. Okay, so in my talk today, we're going to talk about both of them. Some of them are customs, some of them are British things that we do here, and some of them are just habits that are a bit ingrained in people, and we just can't stop doing them because it's what we're so used to. A couple of other useful words to consider, because I might use them during this talk. A quirk, okay, a strange aspect of a person's character or behavior that is odd or unique to them. Okay, we can say somebody's quirky because they have this particular behavior, but you can apply it to a culture or a country as well. You can say it's a quirk of that place. So again, all of these examples that I'll have today are kind of quirks in Britain. And also in my title, Weird Britain, let's talk about weird, okay? Simple meaning, very strange. Be careful with the word weird. It can be impolite to say to somebody, you're weird, or your culture is weird. This is not what we're doing today. We're just saying, this is weird to me, from my perspective, because it's different. Another word to be careful of is weirdo. Okay, you might call somebody a weirdo because you think their dress or behavior seems strange. Don't call a stranger a weirdo, it's not very nice. Don't say you're all weirdos, that's not very nice. But, amongst friends, you might call somebody a weirdo and get away with it. So just a bit of vocabulary to help along the way. Right, I've got 11 quirks of British culture that we're going to talk about today. Here is number 1. We'll start with a very controversial one. Wearing shoes indoors. If you've ever been to Britain, it's very normal to wear your outside shoes in the house. But I know that this is not so normal in particularly Far Eastern cultures, Japan, Korea, China. I think also the Middle East, it's not particularly normal to wear your outside shoes inside. But here, I would say most households, people will wear their shoes inside. I think there's a very good reason not to wear your shoes inside, that people from other cultures will say. It's unhygienic. And I can't disagree. I can't think of a good reason to wear dirty shoes in your house, but we do. I say it's controversial though, because even within Britain, people have strong opinions on this. Some households will definitely not wear their shoes inside, especially if they have carpets and they won't want their carpets to get dirty, whereas other families, other people just don't care. And it creates this kind of awkwardness if you visit someone else's house. There's always this awkward moment when the owner of the house might say, can you take your shoes off, please? And because in the UK, that's not normal for everybody, the visitor might feel a bit strange. But on the other hand, the owner of the house might feel pressure to just let the person wear their shoes because they want to be polite and they don't want to ask them to take their shoes off. So yeah, every house is slightly different, but I think overall it's pretty normal to wear shoes inside. So my house, I have to be honest, we wear our shoes inside. We try not to. I try to take our shoes off and leave them in the hall and wear in slippers or indoor shoes, but there's a real practical problem I find. You get your shoes on, get ready to go, and then you've left your keys in another room or upstairs. So do you take your shoes off, go get them, come back, put your shoes on, tie your laces again? I don't. I just run and get my keys and my shoes on because I'm too lazy. I did notice, going back to Japan again, that one solution to this is not having laces. If you just have slip-on shoes, you can take them on and off all the time. So that's one way of getting around it, I think. So yeah, let us know. What do you think about wearing shoes inside? Are you from a culture that doesn't wear shoes? Tell us where you're from, and how do you feel if you wear shoes when you're in the UK in the house? Or how would you feel if somebody came into your house in your home country and forgot to take their shoes off? I saw the news yesterday or 2 days ago. And just to be topical and talk about coronavirus, they were saying that Japan has a lower rate of infection than many other countries. And one reason that they might have for this is just cultural practices that are so normal there as opposed to here, such as wearing masks. You know, it's pretty normal to wear a mask if you're sick. It has been long before coronavirus. Not shaking hands, pretty normal to bow. You don't tend to shake hands or hug people, which is more common in Western cultures, and not wearing outdoor shoes inside. So, you know, there might be something in that. I see there's some comments coming in here. Downstairs, okay. Upstairs, not. Well, there you go. There's a unique house rule. And what's Johnny asking? Have you ever been caught out when someone has asked you to take your shoes off? Yeah, I mean, I visit homestays a lot as part of my job. So, you know, every host's different. So sometimes you're not sure what to do, and you get halfway along the hall and the host says, "Can you take your shoes off, please?" And I've also done it in Japan as well, just not thinking, you know, because I got used to it, but I just wasn't used to it at the beginning, and I felt so guilty. I really did. Okay, it's great that there's comments coming in here. Deepak, in Turkey, you need to take off your shoes outside, but not in my house. And another one from Russia here. I will be really offended if my guests don't take off their shoes. Yeah, so there you go. I see one of those comments was from Marina. Thank you. That question about being caught out. Thanks, Marina. Okay, don't worry if I move on and you still want to talk about shoes. You can still make comments. I'll go back to it. It's all right. You don't have to keep up with the presentation. Okay, next one, double carbs. This might take some explanation. So carbs equals carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are a food group, like proteins or fats, a part of the nutrition that you get from food. And you tend to find carbs in grains, bread, pasta, fruit and veg, potatoes in particular. By the way, on each slide, in the top left, there's a picture in a circle. This is to give you a guide to what the topic is, okay? So I've got some examples of carbs in the picture. And apparently, visitors to the UK have said they find some of our food a little bit strange, especially double carbs, eating two bits of food that are both mainly carbohydrates. So in the picture, you can see on the bottom left, this has many names in the UK. In Yorkshire, where I am at the moment, it's a chip butty. Where I'm from in Glasgow, it's a chip roll. Other people call it a chip barm. I don't know where they're from. Maybe Lancashire, I'm not too sure. But there are lots of different names and words for it. But yeah, it's chips in a roll. So not much health benefit from that, I don't think. Then one of my favorites when I was a kid, at the top, a crisp sandwich. Salt and vinegar, cheese and onion, very salted, put it between bread, and you get a delicious sandwich. Again, not the healthiest option, but a good one. Somebody told me a story, and I cannot remember who it was. It was possibly from our school in Harrogate, but it could have been from somewhere else. It was about the end of a course, and all the students were asked, in one word, tell us your experience in Britain. And a Korean student said, sandwich. And I thought that was a great word to choose, because if you've ever been here, you know we eat a lot of sandwiches, and we put anything in sandwiches, including crisps. And the bottom right picture is a fish finger sandwich, because even restaurants now are selling fish finger sandwiches as a dish. The double carb element here is not the fish, it's the breadcrumbs around the fish and then in a sandwich. And yeah, you can get that in some restaurants. In fact, if you come here, there's a restaurant not far away from the school in Harrogate that sells fish finger sandwiches. So yeah, what do you think about our sandwiches? What's Johnny saying? In Glasgow, a chip roll was the highlight of my week. Was it, Johnny? That's very nice. I used to get one every Wednesday on my way home from rugby. Well, if you need anything after rugby, it's a chip sandwich. And yeah, salt and vinegar or salt and sauce. There's another regional thing. Salt and vinegar in the west of Scotland, salt and sauce in the east of vinegar for putting on your chips. Okay, another topic. Right, birthday cake doggy bag. Probably most of you might be thinking, what on earth is this? This came from the newspaper article that I read, I mentioned at the beginning. And when I read it as well, I thought, I don't even know what this is. But then I remembered it's something from my distant past when I was a child, which was a long time ago. But it's to do with kids' birthday parties. And this was from a visitor to Britain who was obviously invited to a kid's birthday party because they had a kid and they found this strange. So let me explain doggy bag, first of all. If you go somewhere, a restaurant, a cafe, and you can't finish the food, you might ask the waiter or the waitress if you can have a box or a bag to take it away with you to eat later. This is called a doggy bag. Okay, I think it comes from the idea that you could take some food for your dog that you can eat yourself, but people will take it home to eat themselves as well. So a birthday cake doggy bag. If you go to a kid's party in the UK, certainly when I was a kid, you go in, you're a kid, you play games, you have activities, maybe there's some entertainment, and at some point you have to sing happy birthday. So you light all the candles on the cake, you put the lights off, everybody sings happy birthday, the birthday kid blows out the candles, makes a wish. What do you think you do next? Well, most people would say you eat the cake, not at a British kid's birthday party. Usually the mum, maybe the dad, but often the mum will take the cake away immediately. Take it to the kitchen, cut it into pieces, put it into bags, and you will never see that cake again until you walk out the door. Because when you go home, you get given the doggy bag, and the idea is that you eat it at home. Why you can't eat the birthday cake at the birthday party, I have no idea. I can only guess that the host of the party doesn't want the kids to make a mess of their house or something like that. But yeah, I hadn't thought about this for many years. When I read it, I thought, yeah, that's interesting. That's true. Is that how kids' birthday parties go in other countries? Let us know. What's Cal saying? We always got goodie bags at kids' birthday parties, right? Maybe goodie bag is what we would use for a kids' party. Doggy bag, goodie bag. You could probably use either or. Okay, let's have another topic. Right. So a topic I'm sure nobody has thought much about before, but I'm going to talk about it today. Not drinking UHT milk. So this is British people not liking to drink UHT milk. What is UHT? Ultra high temperature. Okay, so this is milk that is treated by heating it up to such a high temperature that all the bacteria is killed. And it means that you don't have to keep it in the fridge. Okay, it's long lasting. So on the left of the picture, you can see fresh milk. This is what most people drink in the UK. You have to keep it in the fridge or it'll go off, it'll smell bad. On the right is UHT milk. This is the one in the supermarket that's not in the fridge, it's on a shelf and it lasts for 6 months or something like that. I think for most British people, they experience UHT milk when they go to a hotel in those little cartons. There's a picture there. So you make your cup of tea and you've got the little carton for your tea or your coffee. But generally, I don't know why people just don't feel comfortable drinking milk that you don't have to keep in a fridge or that's older than a few days old. It tastes disgusting, somebody just said. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa says it tastes disgusting. I disagree. I had this opinion as a British person going abroad. I went to other countries where they don't drink fresh milk much, and I could only get UHT milk. You put it in the fridge, and it tastes just the same as any other milk. So I am all for UHT milk being introduced more to the UK. There are pros and cons to both. I did a bit of research, and I read that fresh milk is a little bit better for you nutritionally, but there's not much difference. But there is an advantage to UHT milk. It doesn't have to be transported in a refrigerated lorry or truck or whatever, which makes it better for the environment. So pros and cons to both. From China, why do British people drink so much milk? Yes, a good question. I know you're saying from China. I know it's not a big part of the Chinese diet, but yeah, milk for breakfast with cereal, milk in tea, a glass of milk. Yeah, it's just, I think it's a quirk. It's just, or it's a habit of British people to drink milk. We're so used to it. But I know we do drink a lot more than many other places. Okay, enough about milk. Right, next one. Carpets in bathrooms and pubs. Let's do this separately. Let's start with bathrooms. So I think this is a bit out of date. Certainly when I was a kid, we had a carpet in our bathroom. And I think most people had carpets in their bathrooms. These days, most people will have a hard floor because let's face it, it's not a very nice idea to have a carpet in a bathroom. It doesn't seem very hygienic. You can't clean it very easily. You can't wipe it and mop it. Although I found that picture and that looks quite modern. I think that looks like quite a nice bathroom with a light blue carpet. So maybe it'll make a comeback. But I'm told that this is something that a traveller to the UK pointed out, that wherever they were staying, maybe it was Airbnb, maybe it was a homestay, the person had a carpet in their bathroom and they thought this was so strange. Then we've got carpets in pubs, which I guess is a sort of public place with a carpet. Is that unusual elsewhere? I don't know, I'm used to it. Certainly we still have carpets in pubs, it's pretty normal. I think that pubs want to try and make it a homely atmosphere. It's like your second living room. They want people to feel comfortable. So I think that's why you can still get carpets in pubs. I quite like it. I suspect they are very dirty. We were talking about wearing shoes inside. Well, this is lots of people wearing shoes on a carpet all day, all night, every day and night. So yeah, you probably don't want to roll around on the floor of a pub. But for walking on it should be all right. Let's move on to another one. What's this comment about pubs or carpets and pubs? They hide the dirt. Well, that's true. If you get you don't usually see a kind of cream carpet in a pub. Usually it's a crazy pattern so that you can't actually see the dirt so much. So maybe that's another advantage I didn't think of. Okay, next one. This came from a newspaper article, somebody visiting the UK and going on a night out and thinking this was odd. British people not wearing a coat in the wintertime. So those two pictures are from Newcastle, which is a city in the northeast of the UK, very famous for its nightlife. And yeah, that is a typical scene. It might be 0 degrees, -2, -5, who knows, snowing, and nobody's wearing a coat. And yeah, you'll see this all over the UK, not just Newcastle, Glasgow, Leeds, London, all over the place. And I can kind of understand it, but I think it's an age thing. When I was the age of those people, probably teens, 20, early 20s, something like that, I never wore a coat when I went out. I think some people do it for fashion reasons. Maybe especially the girls don't want a coat over their dress because, I don't know, you can't get a coat that goes well with the dress or something. And also practical reasons. If you go to a nightclub, the last thing you want to do is stand in a line for half an hour to put your coat in and then have to stand in a line for half an hour to get your coat back. So people just didn't bother with coats. And when I was that age, I didn't bother. I never thought about a coat. I never felt cold. I guess that's the advantage of being young. Now, if I'm cold, I wear a coat. It's as simple as that. But yeah, that's a typical sight you'll see if you go out in the UK. Okay, let's go into have a look what we've got next. Right, splitting the bill equally. I think this is a good one when you've got lots of different nationalities listening, because this is something that is quite different in different countries. So, splitting the bill equally, it's quite common in the UK if you go out with a group, maybe 10 people, it could be a work thing, could just be friends, that you will just say, let's divide the bill by the number of people. So it costs £100, there are 10 people, everybody pay £10 each. Even if he had something that cost £15, she had something that cost £5, everybody's paying £10. It's quick and it's easy. You might have heard the term going Dutch. Okay, so I guess this is also the culture in Holland as well, splitting the bill. So the alternative to this is everybody paying for what they had, which does happen sometimes. Okay, you might pass the bill around and say, well, I had this plus a drink, add it up, so I owe £7.50, and then another person will say I owe £12, and you get it all together. That would be an alternative way of doing it. But I think most commonly it's quite normal just to split it evenly, which can cause a bit of awkwardness sometimes, especially if some people don't, they only had a drink or something, they don't want to pay the same as everybody else, which you can understand, but by and large it works. Going back to my time in China, it's very different there. Usually one person will pay, no matter the situation. If it's a works thing, the most senior person will just pay for everybody, no matter how many people, no matter how much it costs. And if it's a family thing, I never quite understood exactly how it works. Maybe if there's anyone from China listening, you can tell us. But there's a lot of arguing. Say, I'll pay, I'll pay, and fighting over it, and give me the bill, I'll give it to you, and running to the waiter and saying, don't take any money from him, I'm paying. And it kind of goes on for a long time, and I don't know how you decide who wins, but there is some kind of system that most Chinese people will know for paying bills in groups. And the other situation in the UK that I can think of, I don't know if it's unique to the UK, but certainly common here, is rounds. And that means when you go to a pub, I don't know if anybody listened to Rob's talk on pub culture. I don't know if he talked about this, but when you go to a pub, it's common to buy a round. So that means, let's say there's 4 people. One person would go and buy 4 drinks for everybody. And then you finish those drinks, and then the next person would go and buy the next 4 drinks, and then the next person, and then the next person. So by the end, it's all even, in theory. But this doesn't work in practice, okay? First of all, you might not want 4 drinks. You buy your 3rd pint of beer, that might be enough for you. And then you feel pressure because you're number 4 and you owe everybody a drink. You feel, I've got to stay and buy another drink. Or you might all agree, let's just leave it and we'll continue next time. But then the next time, it's not the same 4 people, or you've forgotten who had bought a round, but one person remembers, and it can cause arguments. Or you're in a 6-person round and you get to drink number 5, and people start deciding, oh, I want a fancier drink now. Now I want whiskey, or I want cocktails. And suddenly the person who's getting the round at the end is paying more than the person who's getting the round at the beginning. So it's a strange system. I've never really understood why we do it, but it's certainly common to the UK. What is Johnny saying? Rob has never bought a round in his life. Well, there you go. No comment. Thanks, Johnny. Moving on. Right, this is another one I got out of the newspaper article that I had never thought about. Possibly because I haven't been to many weddings, which is fine by me. But evening only wedding invites. So this is quite normal in the UK, and I guess I just assumed that it was like that everywhere. If you look at the pictures, you can see evening reception and reception only. So you might get an invitation to somebody's wedding that says, really, it's saying you can't come to my wedding, the real bit of the wedding, you just come to the party in the evening time. And yeah, I think that's quite a good thing, because the wedding ceremony is not the most exciting thing, really. I'd rather go to the party than the actual thing in the church or the registry office or wherever people are having it. It's a hell of a long day if you have to go to the thing that starts around midday and do all the wedding photos and stick around and chat to everybody and then go to an evening party. So it all works pretty well. But tell me, how does this work in your country? If this is strange in the UK, do you go to the wedding all day in your country? Or do you just go to the ceremony? Maybe there's not a party connected to it. Maybe it doesn't happen on the same day. I don't know. I have been to one wedding abroad in China, and it's just much shorter. You go to the whole thing, but it really doesn't take long. A really short ceremony, then everybody goes for lunch, and it lasts an hour or two, and it's all over by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you can all go home. So it works quite well there. But yeah, I'd be interested to know about wedding invitation culture in your own countries. Okay, let's have. I don't know what number we're on. I think there's 2 or 3 more to go. Let's have a look. What else have we got? What have we got? We've got a message from Poland. Weddings can last several days. Oh dear. If you're a guest, do you have to go every day? Let us know more about that. Do all the guests come to everything, or just the family and the friends go to a bit of it, or how does that work? Okay, right. This one, if any of you've got kids, this might be a familiar problem to you. So this was a visitor to the UK commenting that they noticed that their host, I think, cooked a separate meal for them from what the kids got. So on the left, you've got a kind of typical unhealthy kids meal: chips, chicken nuggets, some beans, all pretty plain, no strong flavors. And on the right, I'd probably prefer the one on the left, but on the right, what many adults will eat, a salad, and chicken. And yeah, it is quite common to do this in the UK, to not give kids adult food. And I think that the pressure is it just comes from kids not wanting to eat it, and arguments, and parents being fed up and thinking it's easier if I just make them something they like and they'll just eat that. I've got kids, and we try as much as possible to give them the same food, because I don't really want to cook separate things. What I do differently is if I'm cooking something that's spicy or very spicy, I'll cook up to the point where the chili or whatever makes it spicy goes in, and then I'll take it out, put it in a separate pan, continue with mine with the spice, and then leave the kids one cooking separately. So it's basically the same food without the spice, because I know that they won't eat it. But yeah, what about your own countries where you are? Would kids always just eat the same meal as you, or would you prepare separate things for them? I think in a home situation is one thing. In a party situation might be a bit different. You might do a kids party, so you do kids food for them. But we're talking about your normal daily meal. I think one of the issues of doing the separate food that the visitor to the UK pointed out was that it kind of spoils the child. They'll just expect special treatment all the time and for the rest of their life if they always get a special meal. And if they go to their friend's house, they might not get that. There's an interesting question from Lisa. Do Korean children eat spicy food the same as adults? So like kimchi and that, I suppose. Yeah, exactly. I mean, some countries' food is just all spicy, isn't it? So do the kids just from when they're really young? Do they just eat the same food? Is it just us in Britain that thinks kids can't eat spicy food? Anybody from Korea or any other countries that have lots of spicy food? Let us know. I'd be interested to find out. Okay, let's have a look at the next topic. Right, cards for every occasion. Yes, this is a problem in the UK. There are too many cards. We are a card-giving society, I think. I think other countries might be described as gift-giving cultures. Certainly in the Far East, it's very common to give gifts in lots of situations. Yeah, we give gifts as well, but not as much as we send cards. In the picture, you can see "Get well soon," "Happy birthday," "Thank you," "Thinking of you," "Congratulations on your new home," "Good luck in your exams," "Good luck in your driving test," "Happy anniversary," "Congratulations on whatever." Yeah, there are cards for all sorts of situations. I think it's a commercial thing. You know, the shops want to sell cards, so they come up with new ideas. So if you're ever looking for a card, you can usually find one in a British card shop. I saw in the newspaper the other day that there was congratulations on coming out of self-isolation for everybody who has to stay at home because of the coronavirus. So you can even give a card for that reason. Lisa says, congratulations on your divorce. Yeah, sure. I'm sure you can get happy divorce cards as well. I know I've been to countries where they just don't give cards at all. So you just don't see card shops, and even for birthdays, it's just not the thing to give people cards. So it's very much the opposite. Marina from Russia, he's saying, is a card a good present for a birthday? Just a card? Well, how can I answer this? My mum likes getting cards. My wife likes getting cards. I'm not so excited by a card, if that gives you the picture. So some people, yes, very much appreciate a card. And it can be nice just to get a card. I think that's fine. I think it depends on how well you know the person as well. And if you often give gifts to each other for your birthdays, and then suddenly one year you decide just to give a card, probably not good. But if it's just maybe a colleague or a neighbor or something like that you want to give a card to, I think that's fine, and most people would appreciate just a card. Okay, right. Okay, this is the last one we've got. Yeah, going out on a high, freezing bread, a very, very exciting topic to end on. This is one I've noticed from personal experience of students coming to the UK and getting confused by our British custom of putting bread in a freezer. If you look at the circle in the top left, you can see best before and a date. Okay, I think most countries have this system. You buy food, it's got a date on, it's recommended that you eat it before. But in the UK, we put bread in the freezer. You go to the shop, you put bread in the freezer, and then a month later, when you need the bread, you take it out and you defrost it, and it's fresh like the day you bought it. But of course, the best before date is a long, long time ago. And it has come up before that students have not been so happy because they think they're getting served out of date bread because they've seen the label. But of course, they just hadn't come across the concept of putting it in a freezer before. So just one of those little, I think this is an ideal example of a quirk, a British quirk, that it's quite common for us to freeze bread. I've been to France, of course, where it's famously common to buy fresh bread every morning. And I can confirm when I went there, I did see a lot of people walking about with bread because they had bought it that day. But for us in the UK, we'll often just buy a few loaves of bread in the supermarket, bring it back home, keep one out and put 3 in the freezer for later on. From Hejung Jun, is sending an email considered less polite than sending a card? Yes. Less polite? I think so. I think there's nothing wrong with sending an email, but if you really want to do something nice for someone, I think in the UK that a card would be nice. Lisa says if you write a lovely message in it, it's nice. So it's not just the fact that you're giving them a card, but also the message that you write. So yeah, I'm not surprised that I've got more comments about cards than I do have about frozen bread, but that's okay. All right, so I hope that there were some interesting things in there, things that you've seen yourself or never thought about before. We're going to have a chat, I think, me and Johnny, so you can still send comments if you want about any of those topics. But yes, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the talk.
Perfect. Thanks very much for that, Duncan.
No problem.
Do you want to stop sharing your screen, and then what we can do, we can see more of your lovely face. Perfect. Now we can see more people. So I've got it set up so whoever's talking jumps on in. So there we go. So Duncan, when you start talking, you'll take over the main spot in the center. But for now, they've got to put up with me. There are a couple of questions that came in while you were going through. So I just want to run through them with you. The first, right at the beginning, where's the most unusual place you've lived? Because you've lived all around the world, but where's the place that you found hardest to adapt to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've lived mostly in Japan and China, for years, and a little bit in Thailand as well, and also Australia. Where's the hardest place I've lived? The hardest thing I've found is not living in those countries. It's coming back to the UK and living here, which you might think is a strange thing to say, but I think it's because when you go to another country, you kind of expect things to be a bit different. You're prepared for it. You think about it, and it's not unusual that things are unusual. But when you come home, you don't think that way. You think, I know everything. This is where I'm from, and it's that kind of reverse culture shock that I find most difficult. But none of the things I think have been difficult living abroad, just sometimes embarrassing, like that example in China when I took the whole plate of food off the middle of the table.
And you've talked about the culture shock. Now, biggest culture shock, you've moved from Scotland to England. What are some of the quirks you found in England that you maybe didn't expect being born in God's own country up here in the north?
Yeah, very good question, Johnny. Thanks. Language. Now, it's the same language, it's English, but there are things that people say in England or this part of England that we just don't say in Scotland and vice versa. So again, it's strange. If I'm in Japan or China and I'm speaking bad Japanese or bad Chinese, people kind of understand because it's not your native language. So people account for that and you can figure it out and work on it. Here in England, nobody accounts for that because we're speaking the same language. So I'm often misunderstood ordering something because I call it a roll and chips instead of a chip butty or whatever. The other one is sausage roll and sausage. In Glasgow, a roll and sausage is sausages in a roll or in a butty, and I've asked for that before in a cafe, and that's caused confusion. Ordering in a fish and chip shop, we in the UK in Glasgow we would call a fish supper is fish and chips, but you go into a fish and chip shop here and say fish supper please, you don't get very far. You just get a strange look. So just little things like that you just don't know until you try and figure it out as you go along.
I think it was interesting. You talked about double carbs and British people loving carbohydrates. We got a question actually from our American friend, Cal, who said, what's the best flavor of crisps to put in a sandwich?
Well, in my opinion, salt and vinegar.
Why?
Well, they're the best flavor of crisps. You put your favorite flavor of crisp in a sandwich and you're good to go. But the great thing about a crisp sandwich is the variety. You can put any flavor of crisp in a sandwich that you like.
I'm going for some fusion cooking later on. I've got a packet of katsu chicken flavor Pringles. So they're
nice.
going in my sandwich later on. So it's going to be Euro-Asian fusion cooking I'm having later on. I'm looking forward to it.
That sounds very good.
I suppose this question's quite topical because we're in lockdown. It's like, what's the strangest thing British people freeze? Or what's the strangest thing you found in your freezer?
Well, yeah, I mean, can you not freeze anything pretty much? I don't know. We freeze ginger. Does everybody freeze ginger? Like,
I'm seeing some shaking heads.
Root
Some
ginger.
people look disgusted at that suggestion.
Yeah, no, because you can, and you can just grate it frozen, and it immediately defrosts because it's so tiny. Bread, of course. What else is in my freezer? Ice cream, you kind of have to freeze. I have a choice there. Yeah, that's the best I can come up with on the spot is ginger.
This is where I'm going to do a health and safety warning. Anything that you freeze and then unfreeze based on Duncan's suggestions, CES are not liable.
Correct.
I'm going to be very clear about that. One question that came in when you were talking about the wedding, would you feel insulted or less loved if you were given an evening only invite?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, because I think this is why it's maybe a bit controversial. I think if you're the people getting married and therefore deciding who to invite, you might have some difficult decisions to make. You know, who is, because I think generally in the UK for the ceremony, your close family and your close friends would be invited, and everybody else would come to the reception. But it might not always be clear who you consider a close friend. The other person, or if you consider someone not such a close friend, they might think you are a close friend. And I guess there is some potential for some friction there. So it could be a tightrope to walk. But I think the safest thing is just invite as many people as you can and hope for the best.
And we're just going to finish it. We're going to have one final question to finish up. And it's a very straightforward question. It's come to us from South Korea. Do you have a carpet in your bathroom? And if so, would you wear shoes to go in? So they've been combining two of your topics.
That is an amazing question. That is the best question I think we've had. No, I do not have a carpet in my bathroom. But yes, I have worn my shoes in the bathroom, even though I don't have a carpet. Again, just comes down to laziness.
And also, bathroom floor, they can be very cold. You need some shoes. You need at least a pair of slippers.
That's absolutely right, yeah. I mean, one thing that springs to mind about bathrooms as well, it's also different in other countries compared to Britain, is kind of the wet room, where, you know, you don't even have a separate shower. The whole room is the shower, if you like. So, you know, you wouldn't wear shoes into a room like that because it would be filthy. And yeah, there's all those little differences anyway. But we could talk about bathrooms all night, Johnny.
Perfect. What we're going to do, we're going to finish up there, Duncan. Thank you very much for talking to us. I'm sure we all enjoyed it. There's so many quirky and unusual things about the UK. It's great to get the chance to hear about them. And speaking of things that are quirky and unusual, next week's Chess Talk is Rob. And he's going to be talking all about Morris dancing. Now, if you've never seen Morris dancing before, I really recommend tuning in because I think it's absolutely fascinating. It's something that is definitely British and, more importantly, is definitely English. So look forward to that next week, 3 o'clock on Wednesday. This Chess Talk is going to be available online along with all of our previous ones. And if you're interested in doing things like the quiz tomorrow night or taking part in the photo competition, just check out our Instagram page, and Cal's put up lots of information about all of the social events. But for myself, it's been a pleasure seeing you all as always. And Duncan, I'll give the final word to you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope to do another one soon.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.